2025.2 just dropped. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to jump in live and we're going to run through some of the new features, talk about how they help, how they don't, some of the stuff I'm really excited about. So let's jump in. Episode 126 of BIM After Dark Live. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode 126. I don't know if I said 25 or 26 in the intro, but it's 126 of BIM After Dark Live. This is the first episode of the fall 2025 season. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about Twinmotion today. I see we got some returning folks here in the chat. If you're here live, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Always great seeing you guys. If you're looking at this in the future, thank you for watching this in the future. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, set reminders so that you know when we're going live again. As it stands right now, this season, we're going to probably do Wednesday nights. There may be a couple of daytimes there, depending on where the guests are tuning in from, but got a bunch of great stuff lined up for you. So thanks for joining tonight, and I'm super excited to jump into it. Let me cut the music, and we'll just start rolling into this thing. So Twinmotion 2025.2 was officially dropped, I believe, yesterday or the day before, maybe last week. I don't remember. But the preview's been out for a little bit, and now the official release is there. Before I jump into it, I did want to mention that if you're using Twinmotion for Revit, which is the download that you get from the Autodesk website, if you're a Revit user, 2025.2 is not there yet. I'm sure it'll be there soon, but it is not there yet. 2025.1 is there, but not 0.2. However, if you're an Epic user or and you have that account, then you can actually download it. If not, you can download the preview anyways, even if you're not a Epic user, and take a look at the preview because it's got all the same features, maybe just a couple things not fixed. Anyways, so a bunch of really cool stuff. I didn't do a 2025 video this year. I forgot to. I was busy, but there was a bunch of stuff that was released with 2025 that was super awesome. We're going to tie that back during this video to sort of what's there or what's new, and we can kind of talk about it as we go through it. What's up, Jose, Tyler, Larry, Steve? What's up, guys? Thank you for joining. This is always great to have you guys here. So let's just jump right into it. I mean, we got nothing but time, so let's do this thing. I'm super excited because I've used some of the features just sort of getting ready for this video, but I kind of wanted them to be fresh even for my reactions to them. So I haven't necessarily used them all, and so we're going to kind of play with them a little bit. So I'm going to jump in. I've got the release notes in the description down below. So if you want to check out the release notes, you can. But I'm going to sort of use those as a guideline to go through kind of what we're doing. We're not going to hit every single thing that was released. And there's some things that maybe we won't. We'll go through some different ways. But the first one I am going to talk about is Nanite. And so Nanite is an interesting one. Nanite, for those of you that don't know, is a technology that comes out of Unreal. And I am not an Unreal specialist, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm going to try to explain it the easiest way that I can, which is it's a technology that if you have an object that has millions and millions of polygons or hundreds of thousands so basically triangles that make up surfaces, so something that's very complex, or let's say a building that has, not just single faces, but lots of faces behind it, curtain walls, right? When we use Revit, we're typically not doing one-sided meshes, right? And so what Nanite does is it only renders in real time the faces that the camera sees. And so what it's doing is it's not necessarily reducing the number of faces. And again, this is how I understand it. So bear with me. If I'm wrong, feel free to hit it in the chat. What it's doing is it's not removing the faces. It's not decreasing the number of faces. But what it's doing is it's a technology that is only rendering the faces that the camera sees in real time. So there's not much I can do to sort of show you that, but what I can tell you is how to turn it on, how to convert your Revit models to Nanite meshes. And the only tests I've done so far, let me jump back out. The only tests I've done so far were in a specific scene that had an interior Revit scene. And it wasn't a huge Revit model, but it had a lot of stuff in it. And, my very small sample was running at about 12 frames per second before Nanite. And then I converted all the objects in the scene to Nanite meshes. And it was running in the 50s and 60s. I don't know if it was 100% because of Nanite, but I did notice a difference. So I plan on doing a lot of tests on really, really large scenes. But to me, it makes complete sense. If you have a Revit model, you have all these faces that are away from you and behind and so on and so forth. Part of the reason why lots of Twinmotion scenes with heavy Revit models, especially like, let's say a tower that has curtain walls up the wazoo, you have all those faces going around it. It would make sense that this technology would help us. So anyways, real quickly, just to show you kind of, oops, sorry. Zumped right in. The other thing, this is a live stream, and I'm streaming Twinmotion live, and which means anything can happen when it comes to graphics and stuff. So if for some reason I just disappear, I'm sorry, bear with me. Give me a few minutes. Maybe I'll come back, maybe not. But I'm just telling you, there's always something with OBS and Twinmotion and all these things. So let's just cross our fingers and hope we do this. So anyways, back into this. So what I'm going to do is first, this is a scene that you guys may remember. This is the Stilted Studios project. So this is a Revit model brought in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the visibility to show you what it looks like when it's as opposed to Nanite. And so this is also a new feature that we have here, which we have these different view settings or view. I'm not really sure what they call viewport settings, I guess. And so you can see what it's doing is it's you can flip through a couple different things like wireframes and whatnot, lumen surfaces when you're using lumen, but there is a Nanite triangles here. Okay, so if I go to Nanite triangles and I look around, you see the only thing that's Nanite right now in this scene is my my Revit model, and so it's showing you what objects are Nanite versus not, and so on and so forth. And so you'll notice when I go in and when I go out, you're seeing different stuff. So basically, when you bring in a Revit model, or even after the fact, when you go to import, so if I go to import here, and I select this file, all right, there's an option now for enable Nanite. So you can bring them in as you're importing, which is basically just converting it to a Nanite mesh. You can also select right-click in your container over here, and I'm actually going to move my face because of the sake that this is all going to be over here. Okay, you can right-click and you can say convert all to Nanite. And so I actually successfully converted an entire scene to Nanite. It took a few minutes, but honestly, it wasn't that bad. And once you do that, it's a Nanite mesh, and it works really, really, really well. So, for what it's worth, I guess the future state, in my opinion, is probably going to be just bringing in Revit objects as Nanite. There's no reason not to. There are some limitations if we look at the release note to Nanite, but for the most part, I haven't noticed anything dramatically different other than an increase in performance. So this is something that I know Twinmotion users who are familiar with Unreal have been dying for, right? We got Lumen finally a year or two ago. Now Nanite was kind of the next one. So this is super awesome. I'm excited to test it more out on bigger scenes. But like I said, my really small sample was pretty awesome. It basically gave me, it gave me an increase, a pretty big exponential increase in frames per second, which is what it should do, at least, right? So yeah, plan on testing that a little bit more, but that's Nanite. Super excited about that, and I hope you guys test it out as well, and let me know what you come up with. But for complex geometries like we have in Revit, makes complete sense. Okay, Parallax Windows. This is awesome too. So Parallax Windows, for those D5 users, this is probably nothing new for you, but this is going to be something that I think is going to be helpful depending on what you do for your visuals, especially when it comes to sort of background context, or maybe if you're doing larger buildings like a skyscraper or something, and you're still massing it out and not showing the interior or even modeling the interiors yet. So what is a parallax window? Well, I've got my little fancy facade that I built over here, so we can use this as a testing example. And under objects, if I go to parallax windows now, so right here we have this parallax windows thing here. If I click that, we've got this whole slew of options to work with. Not a ton, but enough to sort of to use for now. I'm assuming they'll add more, and there's probably going to be a way to create your own, or maybe download them from. They teamed up with Parallax Company or something, not the Aaron Mahler Parallax, but different Parallax. And so, perfect example here. So if I take this office and I plop it in here, what you'll see is if I look at it on this side, oh, the blinds are down. That's okay. If I spin this around, you can see it's a flat surface. But when you spin around, and hopefully you guys can see that pretty smooth, you can see it looks kind of like a 3D object, even though it's a flat surface. We also have the ability to change the exposure of it. So you can see I can make it a little bit darker and stuff like that. And there's a bunch of, there's a whole bunch of settings here. You can turn glass on so it looks like it's in the glass. And then what's cool about this is if you were to put it, behind your models, right? So I'm using this as an example of my model, let's say. Let me go back here. Right, so now as you can see, as I'm looking through it, it's background, it's context, and hopefully you guys can see that. I'll go a little closer. Right, but it looks like a fully rendered out, detailed out interior space. Right, so that's super cool. And so what that allows you to do is obviously allows you to quickly make a whole bunch of context stuff. And so I'll throw another one in here and put it on the top so we can see it up top here as well. And so, we only have a couple options. I don't have my thing set to, that's all right. Right now, but I'm assuming that's just going to grow. I'll turn that exposure down a teeny bit. But now you can see, it looks, hopefully you guys can see that. I think you can see that on the screen, yeah. It looks, I'll go slower. It looks like, an office space, and even looking up, right, you're seeing the ceiling. It looks like this depth, this three-dimensional space that really doesn't even exist, right? If you go behind it, it's just a flat surface. So a whole bunch to play with there. Definitely have some fun with it there. I think that's a really cool technology that's been added. Other than in D5, I wasn't really super familiar with it, but having it now is awesome, and I'm excited. If you guys have followed any of my videos over the past many years ago, I used to have a method in Revit where you mass out a core and you apply a building facade material to it, and you put it inside the glass, and you guys have probably done this too, give it a little exposure. It worked, but it was never nearly as cool as this. So Parallax Windows, very cool. Okay, before we jump into the next one, which is some of the new 3D grass material, which is 3D grass material was added in 2025.2 or 2025, but it's been bumped up quite a bit. I did want to mention, for those of you that don't know, we do have a private community for BIM After Dark users that has some incredible stuff, and I wanted to just share with you guys some of the stuff that's going on in there, and if you're interested in joining, to check it out. So over at community.bimafterdark.com, this is what it looks like on the inside. And we've got everything from courses to a general feed where you get to ask questions to the bad residential template. And so this is my Revit residential template, which you guys have probably seen videos on. If you have not, you can download it along with sample files. I am actually in the process of refreshing that and going to do a live course on how I refresh and created that template. We've got courses like DIY Dynamo, so on and so forth. We've got a This Week in Bad update. There's a bad notepad area where I am basically working through all of the different videos and tutorials you've seen. I'm sort of the behind the scenes of it all, including the North Wing. So if you guys have been familiar with the North Wing project, there's sample files for that, including some of the estimates and so on and so forth. And there's also, finally, last but not least, there's office hours. And so office hours, we've had 100 and, God, I don't even know how many. Let's see. I can't remember now. We've had 111 office hours. So every other week we hold an office hour. And not only do you have access to jump on live with myself and other members on a Zoom call where we run through all kinds of stuff, you also have access to all 111 previous office hours in full with commentary and the ability to chat and so on and so forth. So if you guys are interested in that, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com and join now. We have some members here in the chat as well, which are amazing. Thank you. I think I saw Stephen Brosh was in there. So if you're interested in any of my sample files, templates, all that good stuff, definitely worth a try checking it out. Oh, the other thing I should mention, one last thing before we jump in. You do have the ability now to sign up for just the office hours if you want at a different rate, or to download just the template if you don't want to become a full member. I suggest becoming a full member because you get all kinds of great stuff, but go on over to community.bimafterdark.com and check it out for yourself. So with that being said, 3D grass material. Let's jump into this bad boy. So, oops, where's Twinmotion? Here we go. So this is a sample scene that I started with, and so I converted the beach already to to grass. So this was sand, but what you can see is the 3D grass is looking incredible. Now this is not scattered vegetation. So anyone who's used Twinmotion in the past knows that usually to create grass like this, before they had a 3D material, let me try and get a little closer so we can see it. Why am I so sensitive right now? There we go. You had to use vegetation scatter, right? And so you had to place 3D elements, and it was very, very heavy. Now you have the ability, if I go into library over here and materials, 3D grass. So there's a material called 3D grass. So what you do is you just dump that on, just like you would drop any other material, and this is what it does, which is really cool. And so that was released in 2025, I believe. In 2025.2, what they've done is they've added, and we always had the ability to do this appearance, and we could customize it ourselves, right? You could change the scale of it, you could change the size, the spawning, all those good things, right? What they added in 2025.2 is they've added some of these presets. So hopefully you guys can see that on screen. So default, standard, stadium, hot summer, daisy. So some of these are really nice. So if I jump to standard, you'll see, this looks very nice, but you'll already notice even with the presets, we're starting to get a little variation. There's a little more realism to it, right? Stadium is obviously going to be, a nice line cut harder there. If I go to hot summer, you'll see, I'll zoom in a little bit, obviously a little drier. Let me turn off, looks like field of view is on. Hold on. Depth of field is on. There we go. Okay. That's better. So as you can see, and this is a 3D grass material, so it's lighter, it's faster, right? It does its thing. The presets themselves, the one thing, the other thing I'm super excited about, so if I go to the material again, tap it, is they also have ones that have weeds and clovers and fields and stuff within it, which just adds a whole nother level of realism. So if I jump into daisies, you'll see it's grass with daisies and these flowers, right? I mean, this stuff is looking so cool. Violets, I guess that's a little heavy there with the flowers, but that still looks pretty good. And to me, this just looks so much more like what the real world grass looks like, right? It's that variety. It's that blending of all different things, right? I'll show you what clovers looks like too. Weeds. This is my backyard right now, which is grass and weeds and all this other stuff. But these are all presets, and notice how fast they're running. This is not a 3D element, right? And even from above, like you could see, it's got a really, really, really good look to it. So I was super excited when the 3D grass material came on. And actually, let's do this. Let's do one last one. Let's do a daffodils, sure. Right, and even once you do the presets, I'm going to go back to weeds because I like that. Once you do the presets, you can still change the cut, the spawn angle, and all the accent accent meshes and stuff like that after the fact. So super, super cool. Again, this was released in 2025, but they just added all these presets for 2025.2, and I'm super pumped about it, especially because if you have used the previous version with the 3D scattered grass, that it was kind of heavy, and we were basically trying. I was trying to limit it to only putting it in locations that I knew my camera was going to be close to, right? Because that's what you needed there. And I am kind of trying to check on the chat, so feel free to ask questions if you guys are here live. I see Tyler is answering some questions for me, so thanks, Tyler. Tyler was a guest on the show at one point in time, by the way, guys. I think he came on for Unreal, right, bud? So anyways, thanks for joining and answering questions for me. Okay, so let's jump into back to these release notes and keep running through some of the stuff. So install, we don't have to talk about that too much, but basically what they did is they took a bunch. They kind of pulled the Revit on us, or an Autodesk on us, right? So if Autodesk now pulled the content library out to the Autodesk cloud, so when you have to load content now, you go to load from Autodesk library or whatever it is, and you're pulling it down. So what they did is they made the installer. So the installer for Twinmotion used to take 16 to 20 gigs of your hard drive space. Now it takes 8 gigs. And then you just pull down stuff on demand. So take it for what it's worth. You do have to download stuff. It's usually quick downloads. It's not the end of the world as you're going through. But I do like the fact that it's not eating up a bunch of space. And there may be a whole section of library items that you never ever use that aren't going to eat up your hard drive space now. And for obvious reasons, it speeds up the install. Okay, fog cards. Fog cards. So there always was fog in Twinmotion. Some version of fog, I should say, under FX. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go see if I remember how to get to this now. There was fog here. And really all we had was these two, which was ground fog and small fog bank. And so if I put that on, you can kind of see, I'm not going to really see it. It's kind of hard to see there. There it is a little bit. That does work. It gives the effect. It's not, it does the job. Let me hit G here. By the way, I just hit G to show the extras. You can see now I can see it. So we always had that, but with these fog cards, they just added a whole bunch of more options, and they do look a little more realistic, and you have a little more to play with as far as the settings are concerned. And they're cards, so what you'll notice is they're following me. In 3D, I think you might be able to turn off some of the follow me. Yeah, facing camera. So it's facing camera or not facing camera. But we do have this ability now, and they definitely look better. And I think I believe they're as you can see, they're a card now, so it's a little different, right? The other fog objects were real objects. So take it for what it's worth. It does help with performance, I think. Oh, and look at that. Tyler just said the same thing. It helps performance, right? If you put a whole bunch of fog in there, it kind of chucked down performance. So this is one of those things where if you have a stationary camera or you want this thing to face the camera, it's helping with performance. And so I think I'm seeing a little bit of a theme here, which is a lot of stuff that help with performance, which is great, right? There's been a progression of Twinmotion over time. It went from in 2019 where it basically crashed if you just hit it, if you just touched it, to being more stable, but then getting a little slower and chunkier, and then clearly they're doing a lot of updates to performance, especially once Lumen came into play, and you're able to do so much more with real time, which I think is awesome. And so oopsies. Not Outlook. We want to go back to this guy. Okay, so camera syncing I'm not going to show live because I was having trouble getting it working with Revit. So there is DCC, whatever DCC stands for, direct link or something like that, camera linking. And so what that does, if I understand it correctly, is it enables the camera. So if you had a perspective camera in Revit and you kind of moved it, it would align it to your Revit view and vice versa. That kind of thing. I installed the new plugin and I couldn't necessarily get it working, and I wasn't about to try messing with it live. So feel free to check that out if that's something that you're interested in, which is having the cameras sync up. I could see that being beneficial depending on what you're doing, but I don't know. Not really on the top of my list as far as needs and wants, honestly, for Twinmotion, but I'm sure there's someone out there who wanted it, so fine. Static motion blur is another one, and this is going to roll us right into animators next, which is something I'll probably spend a lot of time on for the rest of this video. Is the animation stuff we were given. So what I'll just talk about real quickly is static motion blur, and then we'll go into animators and the sequences and all of that good stuff. I'll skip over VCam as well. Which again is one of those things that I actually do want to try out. I just again haven't set it up yet. Which VCam, the way it works is they have Unreal has a VCam app, and what that does is it'll link the accelerometer in your iPad or iPhone or Android, depending on what it is, to the camera in Twinmotion, and so when you go like this, the camera will move. So kind of cool for presentations or something if you can get it to work, but not something I'm ready to show on a live stream and trying to get it to work on the live stream. So, okay. So let's talk about static motion blur, and then we'll jump into the animators and some of that really cool stuff. So static motion blur sounds exactly like what you think it is. So first, just check out the BIM After Dark dump truck here. Woo-hoo. Okay, so let's go under library. See if I remember where it is. objects. Oops, I don't remember where it is now. Let's see. Blur, here it is, linear blur. I wonder where was it under objects, but okay, so I'm just gonna place it here and I'll show you what it looks like here. So as you can see, it's kind of like an animator, which we'll talk about in a second. And you give it a direction. So I'm gonna go 90 degrees here and I'm gonna lift it off the ground and you can see, so that's the direction. And then you can link objects to it. So hopefully you can see, so up here you hit link and then I select this object and you can see what it does is it adds motion blur. And so, you know, I can change the intensity. I can do this. So kind of cool. And you could also invert it. So the whole scene is blurred versus that. So you can see I'm kind of flipping between it. So I think, you know, depending on what kind of scenes you guys are creating and whatnot, I think there's definitely some benefit to having this, which is kind of cool. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward how it works. You know, obviously if you rotate it 90 degrees, it'll look like, oops, that's not rotate the object. Oh, there it goes. Because it's linked. Let's unlink it first. So, you know, if you obviously if you do it 90 degrees, it'll go the other way. But I mean, that's pretty cool. I think there's probably some people who will find some use for this. If you're doing stills and you want to show the cars and the renderings being blurred out, you know, very, very cool. Oops, let's unlink that again and get rid of that. So static motion blur, cool. Maybe not highest priority for me, but might be something that you guys would really, really enjoy using today. So always good to have it. Okay, so now what we're going to talk about is the animators, sequences, and all of this cool stuff. Including the sequence tool, configurations, and so on and so forth. So the one part that I really wanted to do a video on, which I'll probably just do a standalone video on, is configurators. And those were introduced to us in 2025, and those are incredibly cool and powerful. And so it's 9:27 now. I think if there's time, once I do the animation stuff, maybe I'll circle back and just show you guys configurators. The only reason why I'm saying that is I'm going to need to open another scene and, you know, that whole thing. But but basically, it's given us the ability to be much more flexible when we're doing live presentations. But now with this sequence tool, now we have this ability to really, really create some custom animations and videos. We could always do videos in Twinmotion, but there was definitely a limitation with how custom you can do, especially when it comes to animating objects and controlling those, right? For anyone who tried doing that in the past with Twinmotion, it was difficult because with the animation, even if you moved an object, you kind of either moved it and it stopped, or you had to move it on a loop, and the timing of it was hard, and then you didn't really have much control over where the camera started and stopped, and it was really challenging. And so now all of that's out the window, right? We have full flexibility where you can pretty much create any type of video and animation that you want, which is really cool because obviously there's a lot of animated objects and you can import animated objects into Twinmotion. So with that being said, I'm just going to show you what that looks like because this is really, really cool. So first we'll start about animators and moving objects and stuff like that. And then I think we'll probably have time and I could run back to just show you what configurators are when it comes to interacting with your scene and making live scenes. Okay, I'm going to turn off, I guess I'll leave G on for now. All those decals drive me freaking crazy, but that's all right. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to make I'm going to go to media, and over here, you can see down here, there's all these different types of media. Let me move my head. Sorry if my head's in the way. I'll make my head a little smaller. Yeah. Playing with my head on you guys while I'm live. Okay. So over here we have sequence, and then we do still have pattern. We have a lot of options here that we had in the past, like phasing, which is the time. That's something that they gave us for construction, which was super helpful. But sequence is kind of like the next level of it. Okay, so on sequence, if I hit plus, right now, what you're doing is you're keyframing an animation together. Okay, so I'm gonna say let's start here. Oh, anytime the computer just does a little halt or freeze, I have a mini heart attack because we're live. Okay, so now I'm gonna go 10 seconds down. I'm gonna move my camera up here, let's say, add a plus, and you could see now I'm creating this sequence, right? So boom, boom, there's my sequence, okay? And then from here, I'm gonna add another little camera action, whatever you want to call it. And you could slide these and pull these around. It's pretty nice. So if maybe this one's a little faster, it's 8 seconds. And this one's going to go from here, I don't know, to like that. Okay, so now, oops, I'll go down here. I'll hit the little plus, and there we go. So now, if I go through this, and I'm just going to pan through it for you guys. Let's zoom, scroll in a little here. Okay, so now as I pan through it, you could see, right, I'm just kind of rolling through and making this video. Okay, I'm going to try not to go crazy on you guys and make you dizzy, but, you know, I'll be scrolling out. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? And that doesn't seem like wildly valuable to anyone who's used any 3D rendering programs before, right? I mean, I went right along with you, right? That's just keyframing animation. Like, cool, right? But the next step of it, and obviously you can see there's all these different ease in, ease outs, you know, all the good stuff that you guys are all familiar with probably. But now what we can do is we can add configurators and animators as part of this sequence and control them via the sequence, okay? So what does that mean? So if I go to, geez, why do I always lose where? Tools. So if I go to tools, animators, and you can see I have translators, rotators, and exploders. We'll talk about exploders too. But I'm gonna drop a translator down right here, and I'm gonna select it over here, and you can see here's my translator, okay? And I'm gonna do 90 degrees, maybe not, maybe 180 degrees. Wrong way. 180 degrees. I'm gonna lift it up so you guys can see it a little better. And so if you've never used these before in Twinmotion, right? These are basically animated paths, so to speak, or ways to make objects move. So I'm gonna change the distance to be, I want it to move to about there, and you know, that's what it's gonna do, right? And now what I can do here is I can link this object. So I just link the object to it, and you'll notice what happened down here. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. The translator is now part of my keyframe. Okay, so what can I do with that? Well, I can make this truck move at any point I want, and I can make the duration longer or shorter. So I'm controlling this animation in my sequence, right? So before, that was something that you could not do. I can tell you from experience, right? You could not, you had no ability to start and stop this animation based on certain things, maybe based on triggers and stuff like that. But as you can see, right now I have the ability to control this thing. Hopefully you guys can see that within this sequence, okay? Which is really, really, really cool, right? And that includes rotators, and that includes all kinds of other neat stuff within it, okay? So that alone, right, that's kind of the sequencer update. And I just showed a quick example, but obviously I hope you guys can sort of see how you can piece together movies and animations and pretty much do whatever you want now within a sequence, which is really, really cool. So custom animations are getting there. But they also gave us the ability to do other types of animators, right? So you could see we could do these outwards, inwards, cascading ones, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'll put this down here so you can kind of see. I should probably get out of media mode. Let me get out of media mode. There it goes. So now you can see my animators doing what you expect it to do, which is just loop and loop and loop and loop, or turn it off, right? So as you can see, I already lost control of that thing. So let me select it and turn off the loop. So we're gonna do once, and it'll move, call it a day. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff where, again, we had very little control over before. Okay. So now let's drop in one of these cascading things. And so now if I click this, what you'll see is within these animators, let me move this up a little bit. You can see this is dropping. We have the ability now to add these multiple objects within an animator, and we can kind of spread them and do whatever we want with. And the cool part about them, if I scroll this down, is you could see, hopefully you guys can see way down at the bottom here, is you can just drop objects within them, which is kind of cool, right? So if I was to jump over to objects and do, let's say, I'm not a box. Let's do, I don't know, let's do a toilet. All right, so download it first, of course. because it's now not there. Okay, so you can see I dropped this toilet in my scene, which is the wrong way. Lovely. I'm not gonna go out. I can use it that way. Okay, come on. 90. Lift it up. Okay, so there's our toilet, right? You can take this and you can just drop it in with that, and it becomes part of that, right? And so you have this ability now to drop objects within it, and they could cascade into all kinds of stuff. And so, you know, you're given the ability, again, it's just more flexibility with animation. Okay, so you know, take with that what you will, what you think that would do. But then we also have these exploders. So let me go to tools, animators, exploders. Oops, back. Exploders. And so cascading, obviously, you know, that's something that, and actually I could have jumped this Revit scene. Let's do that real quick. Let me go back to this translator, and I'll do the cascade in. Okay, I'm just gonna pop this here. And so what I'm gonna do with this cascade in is I'm gonna get rid of these boxes. So I'm just deleting them, and you can see the cascade in is still here. I'm gonna take my whole Revit model and I'm gonna toss it into the cascade in. Or not, try again. Okay. And so now you see what it's doing is it's taking the whole Revit model, and of course I have the ability to change that. So if I go up to distance, and if I stagger the offset a little more, if I slow it down a teeny bit, you can see what it's doing is it's dropping the whole Revit model in just like that, right? And you could do it from below, you could do it from below, you could do it from wherever, right? But now you can start to see the ability, what these things are allowing us to do. So you're able to do a lot more custom animations than you were before, which I thought was really cool. I mean, that's, you know, without a cascade like that in the past, right? In any of these softwares, right? It could be a challenging thing to set up a simple, even dropped-in animation like that. All right, so I don't know if I should undo or if I should pull this out. I'm a little afraid. Let's see. You guys can't see, but I'm just trying to undo that cascade so we can jump into the next piece. Okay, there we go. All right. So pretty neat, right? I mean, all these new features for animation to sort of add to our toolkit, which I think is really awesome. Let me just jump back into here. And so, yeah. So I think that's mostly the sequence tool with the animators. You know, there's other smaller things that you can look at. If you noticed on the play buttons, there's different ways a whole bunch of stuff for animators, which is awesome. So I don't want to harp on that for too long. The only other thing I will mention, just because it's one of those things that will probably get some people a little confused who've been using Twinmotion for a while. So if I hit T and I jump to materials, you'll notice this looks kind of the same. But if you're sitting here and you're like, oh my God, where's the scale? Why can't I find the scale? Why can't I find the UV? It's because what they did is they added tabs at the top here. And so now all the UV settings are actually in a tab. The miscellaneous settings like X-ray over there. And then there's an assign tab, which is really cool because it shows all of the surfaces that this one material is assigned to, and then even from there you can select them. So pretty cool. Doesn't seem like a major thing, but definitely something that once you start realizing it's there can be very useful. They also added folders and stuff in the material editor. So there's more you can do with the material editor now. You can add folders, you can filter, you can search, stuff like that. I wish they would do something like that with the import. So Twinmotion folks, if you watch this down the road, please do something with the import area. Give us the ability to somehow filter, condition, sort, maybe do a list instead of icons or something. I don't know, just give us more options for the import window, please God. Okay, so that's a quick thing of the materials. And so, did they fix the scaling for Revit yet? Who was that? LJ asked. So LJ asked, did they fix the scaling for Revit yet? So you don't have to like 13 exit every time. That was never a problem, so to speak, in the sense of it was a it's a user thing that I think I might have done a video on it in the past. But basically, what you're talking about is if I go to materials. So anyone who's used Revit with Twinmotion knows this. So if I go to brick, right, and so by default, let's just change this back. So by default, this is what you're used to doing. So if I want to grab this this clean brick and I throw it on, of course I have to download it. Some downfalls of this whole online thing, but it's all good. If I throw this on here, what you'll notice is that to scale, it's very small, right? And so for a long time, that's what I was doing is I would hit it, I would click it, and I would go to scale, and I'd go like, I'd type in something ridiculous like 26, right? Or whatever it is, right? And then, you know, maybe not 26, maybe 13 to 12, right? And so now you got what you need. But then you refresh it and you have to do it again and all that stuff. Well, LJ, I think that's who's asked it, right? Just so you know, here's the tip. When you're placing Revit materials, in most cases, this is not all cases, but in most cases, if you click this little thing here and you, instead of doing from object UV, because the UVs from Revit transferring to Twinmotion just don't seem to work. If you do cubic UVs as your default option, when I drag this brick over, it will be to scale on your Revit model. So, and when you refresh it, it stays to scale. Technically it's not fixed, but it's also just one of those things that that for some reason Twinmotion defaults to the by object, and there's probably reasons. It probably depends on how other software bring that in. But if you're using Revit, pretty much 99.9% of the time, if you use cubic UVs, you don't have to worry about the scale. And yes, LJ, I did the same thing as you for a long time. I materialed and scaled everything over and over and over again. I thought, this is crazy. And I don't even know how or when I discovered that. But if somebody showed me that online, thank you. If not, you're welcome for now showing you. All right. Michael just asked, do you add finishes in Revit or TM for best workflow? Yes, I add, if I know I'm using Twinmotion for full on, for everything, then I will be, you still have to assign materials in Revit. So I will most certainly be creating materials in Revit, giving them the correct names, and setting up their graphics correctly. So surface patterns, shaded colors, graphic stuff. The appearance tab is the one where I may not spend a lot of time in. If at most, I may make a new appearance for each one just to give it a color so that whenever you're bringing this into Twinmotion, it's not just a full gray model and it's easier to dissect it. But if you're using Twinmotion for all of the textured renderings and scenes, there's absolutely no reason to spend time in the god-awful place that is Revit appearance tab. And so that's one of the nice things about it, right? And even if you did, yes, they do translate and they're making it better so that the materials do translate, but you're still probably going to convert them to Twinmotion materials because they are going to look better. So, okay, let's see if there's anything else before I jump into the configurators, because I think it seems like people wanted to talk about it as well. I talked about materials. The multi-drop tool is nice on the toolbar, and so I think if you select this, I don't even know where it is. Let's see, material multi-drop here. So the material multi-drop, just as you can see, it lets you just apply materials multiple times without having to keep dragging. So in the past, you had to keep dragging and dropping, dragging and dropping if you're applying a bunch of stuff to a bunch of objects. So that's cool, sure. I'm always good for efficiency updates, right? There's a batch export, which is fine, and there's a couple of other little tweaks for some of the photo settings. So I think that's the major of the new features for 2025.2 that I really wanted to touch on. But since we have a few minutes, what I will do is I'll look at some questions here and I'll attempt to open this other scene. So cross our fingers. If I leave you, thank you for joining, but we should be good. So I'm going to open another scene in the background here. I'm going to look at some questions. And what I'll do is I'll just show you, if it works, I'll show you some examples of configurators. And so, the one thing with configurators, or the one thing as well with Twinmotion, is that Once you upgrade a scene, you can't, it's kind of like Revit. Once you upgrade a scene, you can't open it in 2024. One thing I have noticed is that if you're upgrading a scene from like an earlier version to a new version, there are some things that may act wonky and just give you some problems. And I will tell you, Configurators is one of the ones that did. I had a scene that I updated through a couple different versions, and the configurators were kind of working weird. So just a heads up there if you're upgrading scenes. And so this is going to be one of those scenes. This is an upgraded scene. So we're going to cross our fingers and see if it works for you. But yeah, and hopefully all this goes through. Let me just, thanks, Ty. What do you mean CSV? I'm just reading through some of the chats here. It looks like Ty is handling a bunch of the questions. Thanks, man. Setup for organization. Oh, so what Ty is mentioning, so somebody was asking about the CSV file and material mapping. Unfortunately, they haven't done much more to improve the process of material mapping, but you can export the table of materials from Twinmotion, and you can point them to Revit materials so that you're not constantly, if you're using the same materials over and over again, they're already being mapped. So if you do Revit's brick and your Revit brick is called this, this, and this, then it's always going to be this, this, and this in Twinmotion. It's super easy in Unreal graphically to set up. In Twinmotion, it's very challenging. It's through a CSV file. Yeah, not ideal. Yeah, I'm just seeing my camera get a little glitchy as it's opening. It's opening though, so let's cross our fingers and hope this works here. I'm just checking to see if there's any more questions. Is Twinmotion adding AI so we can create material maps like D5 can? Not that I know of, but you know, you can use any other language, any other chat language, and have the same feature. But it is very cool in D5, I have to say, to be able to select a piece of an object and say, can you create a material from it? Okay, so it looks like the scene is opening. We might be able to get this. Let's see. Okay. All right, so looks like the scene is open. It's working, I believe, so that's good. Hopefully you guys can see it. I'm inside of a bathroom. So this is the North Wing project. Okay, so configurators. So check this out. So if I'm presenting this as a live scene, right? So I'm presenting this to my client, you know, and I want to be able to show them two or three options for the floor, okay? For material options, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to media. I'm going to go to configurators. I'm going to add a configurator. Oops, let me get my face out of the way there. Now I can go back over here. Okay. So I'm over here. Okay. And now I'm adding a configurator. I'm going to do a material switch configurator. I'm going to press plus. Okay. And so you'll notice there's a little dot in the screen. Okay. That's our configurator, whatever you want to call it. And this is sort of our state one. And so what we can do is we can capture a thumbnail. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to make a thumbnail of this floor. I'm going to say capture thumbnail. And we could rename it as well. So I can rename this and I can say hex tile. Okay. And now if I want to add another material or another configuration, I can say, I can change this material. So I'm going to click here. Okay. And I'm going to go over to tile. I'm going to just change the tile to something else. Let's go with ceramic. Let's do, oops. Ceramic. Oh my gosh. Trying. Okay. So let's say I want to do this ceramic tile. And so I'm going to apply this to, once it downloads, I'm going to apply this to my floor. Not the most attractive looking material for this particular bathroom, but that's okay. And then I'm going to click create a new state. And you could also have it make a thumbnail while it's creating, but either way, I'm going to say capture thumbnail. And I'm going to rename this one as gray tile or something, whatever. Okay, and then maybe we'll make one more just for fun. We'll do a more like a concrete look. And again, I'm going to capture this. There's an option here. You could say capture thumbnail, you know, auto capture thumbnail as well while it does it, which, you know, is fine. So let me just delete this one now. Okay, so now this one we're going to call state 4. Okay, So now when I'm in this when I'm in this view, okay, if I hit this button, you can see what it's doing. Actually, let me turn on desktop audio so you guys can hear it because I think it's pretty cool. So it's actually making a noise. Okay. So it's clicking between the states. Super cool, right? Not only that, but you can also change how this thing looks. So I can make this look like a little material thing, right? And so you can see it says it looks like materials. Okay. I can also make it, instead of a switch, I can make it a list, which means when I click it, I have all 3 materials here and I can actually click through them. Right? And that's available in presentation mode, which is super, super cool, right? And then I can also break this away if I don't want it to be, stuck to my camera. I can remove it from the camera position, and I can just place it in the object. So if I do, now I have to remember how to move it. Hold on. Let's see. Move this out of the way. Okay. So now if there we go. So 2D trigger. So if I go to 3D trigger, you can see it made a 3D trigger, and I can move this just like any other object, right? I can move this around and it becomes an object. Oops. It becomes an object over here that I can then move around and use for my presentations, right? So I can change the size of it, all that good stuff. So let me just move this up a little bit. You get the idea. So now if I click this, you see it's opening up, but it's existing in my scene. So if I back out of the scene, you know, if I'm over here, right, I don't see it anymore if I'm in this room. But when I enter this room and I move over here, I've got this list that I can go in here and I can click and I can actually click through, which is super, super cool, right? I mean, incredibly cool. The other thing you can do is you can also trigger animations and stuff with it too, right? So as you can see here, I have a rotator here that is linked to the door. This is the door here. So as it stands right now, if I hit play, you can see this is what it does, right? And so previously, all I could do is I could walk up to it and it triggered it, right? But now what I can do is I can use configurators. And so let me go back out here. I can create a new configuration. And I can say, I want this one to be a transform, I believe is the one. Transform. State 1, and you can see there's a button here. Same thing with this button. I can take this out. I can make it a 3D trigger. I can make it, exist next to the door. Let's do that next to the door. And then what does the trigger do? And then that's where you can link up stuff with it. So I believe, and I haven't done this in a while, so let me just see if I remember how to do this. I think I can press link and link it to the trigger. No, yeah. And then I can make it open up somewhere in here. Oops. Okay, so 3D trigger. All right. So let's open the door. Rotator, play. Okay. All right. Well, I don't remember what makes that trigger. So either way, the way it would work is you link this to the rotator, and it would make it work. And I just completely brain farted on how that happens. So yeah, if someone in the chat remembers how to do that, let me know. But you guys, I think you get the concept there. So those are what configurators do. So maybe what I'll do is I'll remember how to do that, and I'll make a video of just configurators, which is what I was always planning on doing anyways. But the idea is you have this ability now to place controls in your scene for materials, ambiance settings. So you can click a button and it would be the sunlight changes or the daylight changes. You click another button and the lights turns on. And so you're having the ability to add all of this interaction with it. So now you can have these live presentation scenes where you can also interact with it. And then obviously the next step would be, in VR now, you have the ability to do that. So super cool. That was, again, in 2025. This is 2025.2, so they've just added onto it. So awesome. Well, hopefully that was helpful for you guys. I'm excited about this release. I'll definitely do some expanded videos on some of these things like Configurators, which I wanted to do anyways. Definitely download it, try it out. Let me know what you think. Comment below for what you think of some of these features. If you're interested in joining the community, don't forget to go on over to community.bimafterdark.com for all kinds of great stuff. I look forward to this season. I'm excited to bring the show back. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you guys later. Have a great week. Stay tuned.